Welcome to the Divorce Podcast, where we explore all aspects of ending relationships, separation, and parenting apart. If your marriage or partnership has ended, or you have friends and family who are separating, this podcast is for you. I'm Kate Daly, a relationship counsellor, divorce specialist, and co-founder of Amicable, the online legal service for separating couples. In each episode, we look at relationships and separation from different angles, including the emotional, legal, and social. I'm joined by experts and special guests who share their own unique stories, experience, and tips, with the goal of helping people end relationships in a kinder and better way. In this episode, I'm joined by founder of Restored Lives Erik Castenskiold to discuss how to thrive as a child of separated parents, even into adulthood. Erik starts by sharing his own experience of divorce and how it ultimately led him to found Restored Lives, a UK-based charity that provides resources and support to individuals and families affected by relationship breakdown. He goes on to talk about Your Direction, a course that offers tools and skills to young people aged 12 to 30 whose parents have divorced to help them find future happiness and success. We explore why the course was created and what the sessions cover. We also address some common concerns parents may have about this kind of initiative. Finally, we discuss the types of conversations that 12 to 17-year-olds and 18 to 30-year-olds might be having during the sessions and how both age groups can benefit from this kind of support. If you loved this episode, then please subscribe and rate us on your preferred listening platform. Welcome, Erik.
It's great to be with you, Kate. It's a privilege to be along.
Oh, it's lovely to see you and thank you. I'm really interested to dig deeper into this idea that children need some special help and support when parents divorce. And particularly this idea that you could be a child of divorce and be an adult yourself now, and there's still a place to go to get support. I really love that. So why don't you start, Erik, by telling us a little bit about how you founded this charity, Restored Lives?
Well, it started, like you say, a number of years ago. But before that, I met a lady called Karen at university. We had a great time together. We laughed a lot and connected. We went out for about 5 years together and we got married. And that was exciting. We moved to London and had a really exciting life. We did a lot of it, combined interest. We had joint hobbies. We had a lot of shared values. And what happened to me was that on a spring morning, a Saturday, she turned to me in bed and stated quite coldly that she was having an affair. And that was a massive shock to me. It really rocked my life. I didn't really know what was going on, actually. It took a while to work out that actually she'd been having an affair for 6 months without me or any of our friends knowing. And it took then a lot longer to try and work out whether we were going to stay together, whether she was going to carry on with this affair. And through that process, I suppose the summary was, I was lost in body, mind, and spirit. I'd had to move out of the house. I had to sofa surf for quite a while. I had to find my place in the world again. Sadly, we couldn't stay together. She didn't want to stay together. And I was left to pick up the pieces of how do I carry on my life, how all these dreams, all the losses that I had, the division of friends, some friends went with her, some with me, all sorts of things. I felt alien in my normal place of hobbies. Lots of different things I know you and your listeners would totally know about. And so I started putting my life together again. I had some very close friends who helped me. And at the time, I went on a course which Christopher Compston was running, a 5-session series, which was, I think, called at the time, Recovering from Divorce and Separation. It was a sort of seminar series. And he was really helpful to me. Some of the points that he talked about was influential and really thought-provoking. So that was great. But I carried on my life without really helping anyone. I apologetically now look back and say I didn't really want to help anyone. I wanted to get on with my life and rebuild it. And then Christopher Compston, in around, I think it was 2001 through 2002, said that he was retiring. And he asked me whether I could help and pick up the seminar series. To be honest, I didn't really want to. But I was out of work at the time. I had literally just been made redundant. And so as I was looking for work, I said, well, I could do 50-50. help on this seminar series and look at it. And with a friend, Deborah Protter, who was an expert on courses, and as well as we had a group of other experts, be it parenting experts, be it counselors, be it relationship professionals, we came together and effectively created Restored Lives as an interactive peer group course. And so what we did at that stage, Christopher was running it over a series of 5 weeks in a church situation. So it was quite church orientated, which was fine. But we wanted to expand it to to everyone, people of no faith or any faith or whatever background. And so we pulled out some of the faith aspects and put it into an optional section, as well as some other things, some abuse session, a session for men. We find that 1 in 4 people in our course are through abusive relationships, coercive abusive relationships, and men are particularly vulnerable in being isolated and very often suicidal thoughts and all of that. So we've put those into separate sessions, but then we've created an 8-session interactive peer group course with lots of sort of expert content. But I suppose the secret sauce, if you like, is that combination of being with people like you, people who have gone through similar things, and seeing them and experiencing their situations, being able to help. Sometimes you can help them. Sometimes their story helps you in the midst of learning these sort of core relationship and recovery skills. And what happens is there's strong bonds created. And, I have had those strong bonds from people who helped me at the time. And also in these groups, you find that going through the life crisis is a very deep and moving thing that when you can help each other, you become friends and people stick together for many years onwards. And so we put that together, and I thought that I was only going to help for a year or two. And what happened was that I saw the feedback and I was bowled over. People were sort of talking about life-changing experiences and real sort of moving events in their life that moved them forward and helped them. And to be brutally honest, I got addicted to helping people and seeing that impact on people's lives. And so, luckily I did get a job as well. But so I've carried on doing a job as well as doing this as a charity, I suppose, as a charitable work.
Well, you made the segue from just being on a course to actually then being asked to run the course sound very simple. But did you have some skills already? What was your job then before?
It's a really good question. My trained skills, I'm an accountant by training, so I'm a chartered accountant. So
wow, no, I am absolutely surprised by that.
Well, yeah, I know. Naturally it fit this. I was very interested and was actually helping on various marriage things, marriage courses, marriage preparation courses at the time. I was active in groups, and subsequently my job moved into a communication. Ultimately, I was a communications director for a listed company, which went through the sort of financial route, but in the end, I was covering a big PLC for all their communications. So I suppose, in the work, I learnt that. But so what was my skills? Maybe it was just orchestrating others. I'm quite empathetic. I'm quite in touch emotionally with, I'm fascinated by people. I love people, and I'm intrigued by how people react and what can help them. I'm, again, quite practical. So I don't mind talking about things, but I love having practical tools and skills which will help people immediately, I suppose.
So you create this course, like you say, you strip out some of the more niche elements of what was the existing course, so the religious side of things, some of the more domestic abuse sides, and you use those as options. You then got a course for adults, and yet today we're going to talk a little bit about the course for children. So explain how you went from having a course for adults that sounds like a phenomenal success, and I take it that's still going, is it, the adult side of things?
Yes, absolutely. We've got about 30 courses running around in the UK, as well as you said, internationally. But and online, the last course online had about 50 people online.
So just on a totally practical note then, people could still, if they're listening and they want to go on one of these courses, they can go online and find a course, or they can attend face-to-face as well in different areas of the country.
Absolutely, yeah. So the different courses around the country are listed on the website, restoredlives.org. And then the online course is also on that website.
Okay, fantastic. So there's a massive and amazing resource out there and a course that you've created, which sounds phenomenal. How did that transpire or change into a course for children of divorce? Talk me through that.
Well, I suppose what happened was that quite regularly people would come to me and say, "Can you help my children?" We'd be helping them as adults, and they were parents and would be trying to help their children. And so we did one or two one off events on weekends, one day, sort of meetings with young people. Then it evolved in, I did some PSHE lessons. At schools, talking really about divorce, but the impact and help for children sort of around year groups 7, 8. And I think the more I looked out and around, you see that there is brutally no effective direct support for children of separated parents. And what was the strange thing was that knowing the statistics on this, which is that I think it's nearly half the population of children in the UK, 3.6 million children, are impacted by the breakdown of their parents' relationship. And so the scale of it is huge, but then the impact is also huge. That you see that one stat says that family breakdown is the single biggest factor affecting teenage mental health. And I was bowled over that. Single biggest. There's a lot of other issues there. So then over the course of the years, I'd talked to headmasters, GPs, youth group leaders, and they all said, absolutely, this is a massive issue. They see the end impact of children absenteeism, self-harming, low self-esteem, all those issues, low academic results. The research is sadly quite, clear on this. And we know how much parents are doing. I look at parents and they're doing huge amounts to help their children, and it's remarkable. But there still is a big impact. And I suppose seeing that impact, we, together with Spurgeon's, we wanted to help. And some of the learnings from the adults course we sort of used, as well as understanding children. I've got now 3 children, 20, 23 and 25. Not that that's a direct factor, but I was passionate about helping children as well. And so we went on that journey to do that. And that journey was talking with counsellors, talking with specialists, and putting together a trial where we could help children. So we put together a 5-session course built around the premise of giving children a voice, enabling them to articulate some of the issues that they have sometimes never articulated to anyone else, but interspersed with experiences of other children who have been through it before, and core skills and tools that can help children in their day-to-day issues, be it understanding what their feelings are, how can they express themselves, how can they speak well, effectively, how they can listen well, learn about boundaries. We talk about problem solving. They've got an issue. How can they resolve that effectively and simply? We talk about, then we all have that pain and hurt from problems that haven't been resolved. Or even when we have resolved them, we still have the pain that, it was a difficult argument and things. And we talk about how to let go of that pain and that hurt and forgiveness. And those tools and skills they're actually the same, similar, I suppose, to the ones that we use for the adults. But as we target them for children, they are really helpful for children in the issues that they are dealing with, be it their feelings, how do I deal more effectively with these thoughts and feelings, what's the effective routes, and how can I solve them? And it's remarkable the impact that I've seen in children, really is.
I mean, listening to you speak as a parent, it just feels like the holy grail of what you want for your kids when you go through a divorce. It's just, I feel the frustrations I'm sure many parents do, where you know intellectually the right questions to ask, you know how you want to help them, you know the kind of support that they need, but just by dint of relationship, you are not the person that they will want to speak to. And not because you're saying anything wrong, not because you're not caring or loving or asking the right questions, but just because of who you are. And as a parent, to know that there are other people out there who can listen, support, and help, and that who your children might well engage with, because there isn't the fear of upsetting you or feeling like they're taking sides or saying something out of turn. That just feels incredibly optimistic. And it kind of staggers me, as you've pointed out in our conversation earlier, that there was nothing out there and that this isn't like taken up by everybody and there aren't hundreds of thousands of courses like this. What is the reticence to speak directly to children, do you think? Why has it taken you to come up with this? Why isn't this just the norm?
Great question. I think there are a couple of issues going on here. One is that there is a nervousness about talking to children, just inherently. What are your skills, qualifications? Have you not studied children for the last 10 years? And in a way, bizarre way, I've utilized and massively Spurgeons have helped us on because they've got the expertise. However, I don't have those boundaries. I just go, no, I've seen it with my kids and other kids. I've helped other kids. And I've seen the impact. There's maybe alongside that is the natural route is counsellors, which are, brilliant, and I would advocate that. But there is a reticence from children to speak to counsellors. That's quite a big step. You've got to be quite mature to do that. And also there's a child expert layer there that is an interesting dynamic. I've had teenagers say, I don't trust counsellors. I go, what? You don't? There's something strange where the teenagers are going through their own independence, that actually there's a dynamic there that when you put them in a peer group, they're actually listen to their friends and their peer group in a room way quicker and a way much more sort of able to drop the drawbridge and be open and honest. But I think the biggest issue is the silence that we have around the issue. And the silence is from two perspectives. One is from the parents' perspective, saying glib things. And I know parents won't think this, but it's a natural reaction, which is to say, oh, my kids are okay.
Yeah,
and I probably say that with
everybody says that.
Exactly.
Everybody says that. Yeah.
I say that about my kids. Oh no, they're fine. But of course I know that there's a whole bucket load of issues I don't want to talk about here, and that's natural to say that. So, but there is an element of then, I don't know, shame or wariness, and especially if you're in the middle of a court case, that would be a negative. So that's a dangerous, from a parent's perspective. So there's a silence from a parent's perspective, and then the other side is a silence from the child's perspective. Because the parental family setup is all that they have experienced in their life. And so that is normal, even though it is, let's say, abusive, wrong, or has various structures which are unusual. I'm Danish. My daughter said when she was about 17, gosh, other people celebrate Christmas on Christmas Day, not on Christmas Eve. And she hadn't got a clue that, that I'm here in the UK, living in South London, and other people are doing something. And she's just used to that. Now, in breakups, it's even more, many more issues that go on. Parents have pain, hurt, the court case causes a lot of things, but then the ongoing relationship of step-parent or whatever it may be. And so the child has a silence on it as well. And that can go, they will say, we hear them say, oh, I'm fine with this. But what we recognize is that a parental breakup for a child is a massive event. It's a life crisis, a life moment, at least. For many of them, it's a traumatic event. And unless you deal with that trauma, it just is locked up in a box, waiting to be triggered by something. And who knows what it is, or it leaks out.
Well, often it's their own relationships, isn't it? So often it's only when you become an adult and you start to engage in your own intimate relationships that some of this stuff actually comes to the surface. And for the first time, you might see it or recognize it. But like you say, what a shame that you don't have the opportunity before it becomes an issue to actually dig through it, to work through it, to process it, to normalize it, and to come out the other side, as you've pointed out, with some additional skills and some resilience. That's the attractiveness to it, isn't it? This isn't just about repairing or damage limitation. It's actually about thriving and about excelling as a human. And that's what attracts me to this so much, is that how do we, you've got a situation where you've got children who have gone through an extreme life event, but that can be a superpower. And if we can turn it, I'm not suggesting that it's a good thing in any way. I'm not trying to sort of say, oh, it's all happy clappy. It's not. As you said, it's a trauma, but it can still be something that kids can turn to an advantage and can take some skills from if they've got that support. To me, it's such a positive to have a course like that around.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the short-term benefits are significant. So we track well-being as people start the course and as people end the course. And 2 out of 3, in the last year at least, 2 out of 3 kids who've come on the course have got either low or clinically depressed well-being levels as they come on the course. At the end, all of those 2 out of 3 kids are at a normal or higher well-being level. So well-being, and exactly what you say, that resilience is improved. But what they all also say is that their relationships with both parents are better. And that's, again, like you, I think it's a no-brainer for a parent. For me, knowing that something could help my relationship with my child and improve their well-being and resilience, well, why not? And we're doing this for free. This is a charitable event. We're not taking any cost for this. So, I mean, go to the expensive counsellors and therapists. I'm all for them as well. But I reiterate and it's a learning that we got from the adults course, which is that the tools and skills that help you through the crisis, through your day-to-day issue of I've separated, how the heck am I going to get up this morning out of bed? What am I going to do? Are the issues of understanding your emotions, dealing with those feelings and thoughts, being able to express yourself, create good boundaries, listen to others, problem solve, let go, and forgiveness. These are core skills to help you in a time of crisis. And that's the same for adults as for children. They're just obviously told in a different way. But those skills are exactly what you say. They help all your relationships. And that, I'll give you a story. One of the young adults who came on the course called herself the 3-dater. And I said, what do you mean the 3-dater? That sounds odd. She said, well, I go out with someone for 3 dates and then I just kick them out. And I go, and of course, the story is her parents separated about 10 years previously. Dad left, the whole abandonment issue and lack of trust from her and her father. She had a very difficult relationship. Through the Restored Lives, we talked about that, and she reignited and restored, I suppose, in a way, in a different shape, that relationship with her dad. And about 6 months later, I was talking to her and she said, I'm going out with someone. I've been going out with them for 3 months. And, I was so excited. Now, I'm not saying that that's all us, but there's an excitement that you're helping young adults to, like you say, pick up the pieces and get restored, but also move forward in healthy, whole relationships going forwards.
It seems to me it's like one of the most important skills, particularly when you look at, we've all been talking about AI and what AI can do and how it's going to change the workplace and all of those kinds of things. The essence of being human is how we create and craft and maintain and form and reform healthy relationships. And this seems to be like the most fundamental life skill. And what a joy that you can give it to people when they've had a rough start to the foundations in terms of how they think about relationships, if their parents have divorced or separated. So it's such a no-brainer. But I was thinking, and I'm going to be awkward now. I'm going to be the paranoid parent. So if this is all about peer support, a lot of what you're doing is the peer support. What happens when a whole bunch of teens get together and they're getting it wrong? And we're spiraling down, because we get this with our forums and things. Sometimes it's very easy when you start to talk about divorce and separation to get into quite a negative spiral, it to become a forum for people, spouse bashing in sort of, not in real terms, but in kind of language terms, and just you spiral down the rabbit hole and all of a sudden you're in a really ugly place. How do you, as a parent, if I'm thinking of sending my child or my recommending to my young adult that they go on this course, how do we deal with that sort of paranoia? I'll label myself paranoid, and you can tell me that I'm wrong, Erik.
No, but you're right to be paranoid. These are important things that you send children onto. First of all, they're run by trained facilitators. So this isn't just a loose forum where, look, have a chat about this topic. So there's a trained facilitator that orchestrates the evening or the session. For 12 to 17, the session's about an hour long. And we have there's a booklet, which we've got, which is a travel guide that takes people through the 5 sessions. It's more like a school lesson, a very chatty school lesson. So what there is effectively video discussion, content discussion. And so it's isolated around those discussion points. For instance, one of the first things is, how did you get to hear about your parents' separation? How did you find out? And so that's the question. But we have, before they answer that, they see a few videos, vox pops, of children who talk about that moment in their lives. So they're warmed up. They're in that sort of environment where they see other people and hear there's some responses. And then they can speak about that. And so those things are orchestrated. And the facilitator is there to make sure that the boundaries are kept. There's safe boundaries, that we make sure that it's confidential, that there's safeguarding in place, that if anything appropriate under the safeguarding rules and regulations, we deal with those in a proper way. And we make sure that other children aren't just giving advice to people. This is not a place where the expert or another child goes, you should do this. No, this is about us expressing our experience and then empowering people with options. And, have you thought, or could you do something else? What else could you do? What have you tried? And it's that empowering of young adults to make the choice themselves, which is really exciting. I'll give you one example. In the last course, we had a 12-year-old girl basically say, my sister's saying that I'm selfish. Do you think I'm being selfish here? And we go, sorry, look, unpack that a bit. What do you mean being selfish? Well, I was supposed to decide where I go for Christmas a month ago, and I haven't been able to decide. I don't know whether to go with my mum, who I haven't seen for a long time, or with my dad, who my sister's going with. And they want me to go for 2 weeks. And so we unpacked it and said, look, what are the issues here? What do you want to do? What are the things? And she said, I'm trying to keep both parents happy. I'm trying to keep my mum happy and my sister and my dad, so 3 people happy. And we unpack that, say, look, it's impossible that you could keep all these people happy. What do you want? And through the tools that she's had about expressing herself, problem solving, she went that week and had a conversation with both parents. And she came back ecstatic. She was really sort of proud the next week. She said, I sorted it. I'm going with my mum for 4 days. I'm going to see my sister for a couple and spend the rest of the time with my dad. And she had solved that. Because I don't know what she needs to do. It might have been the right answer to be with her mum all the time, but that's not my choice. I don't have the consequences for that. But this is her choice and her. So that's a life skill that she's now got, and a short-term problem resolved.
Well, that's what's so lovely, because I often think for kids, when your parents separate, the difficulty is re-establishing the new relationships with each of them, because the way you've related to them in the past is you've related to them essentially as a couple in a physical same space. And when you start to relate to them separately in 2 different spaces, even if the personalities are all the same, there is something quite different about how you navigate that relationship, and the communication is different. Both parents haven't got the little circle back to each other necessarily that they've had in the past. And you feel that as a kid. You don't necessarily see it in those terms, but you feel the consequences of it. And sometimes you, as the child, for the first time, have more information, i.e., both parents' perspectives, rather than the adults having the full information and the full picture. So I think that ability to learn how to deal with separated parents. We talk about it very often, as you know, from a parent's perspective. You've got to relearn to be co-parents. It's a different relationship to being a parent. Some of that glue that has eased things along, that romantic glue and attachment has gone. Therefore, you've got to create a new, more business-like kind of relationship. We talk about that a lot, but we don't very often focus on how children have to rebuild those relationships, and having this space to essentially be able to troubleshoot that and work their way through it sounds incredible. It really does.
On your point, I think it's a brilliant point, and alluded to that. I would say attachment theory is very clear that in the first few weeks and months of a child's life, that getting attached to both parents is essential and create very strong bonds that go hopefully for the rest of life. But that moment of separation of the family breaks that bond, exactly what you said, between the child and mother and father. And that relationship is broken, and now you're creating those other 2 relationships, one with mother, separate, and the other one with the father. And that moment is a massive movement in that foundation. One girl said, that pain still lives in my body 10 years after the event. was how she expressed it, and she felt it in painful ways. And that's why we have to deal with it at the time. But it's exactly what you said. It's about rebuilding those relationships. And that can be done. That's okay. It's different. And that's a challenge for parents, as you say. But there really is an ability to create new, exciting, vibrant relationships in the future.
Well, that's why it's so hopeful to me, because it is about recreating what your relationships and your family life looks like. You have this opportunity. You can leave it to almost lowest common denominator stuff, i.e., say nothing, see what happens, see how the chips fall, or you can actively play a part in that, take control of it and shape it into something. I think that's what makes it exciting. That's where we go from surviving to thriving. And I totally appreciate, as you say, there is an element in the very beginning of surviving and patching people up and holding people up and containing some of that raw emotion. But what excites me is the opportunity to go beyond that as well. And you're more than an emergency service. You're, a life-changing provision. And I think that's why I just love it so much.
And your point about parents not being independent is also a really important thing here, where other people can come in and be that sort of independent third-party voice. And so I would encourage parents to rely on, or encourage school teachers, are great independent people, godparents, anyone that you have who's close to you, who can be that independent person. It's remarkable how children relate to other people in your network in a better, clearer way than they do. And I experience this. My kids sometimes don't listen to me at all, but they will listen to someone else. Yes, exactly.
You're lucky.
But so I just encourage people to seek those people out who can be around, which is really important.
You're absolutely right. And I think that comes into its own and can be more complicated when you're talking about step parents and when you've got secondary relationships. It can be very kind of emotionally triggering to think your child is speaking to another adult who might be the partner of your ex and so on and so forth. And I get that. But it is also a blessing, isn't it, if they do feel able, as you say, to confide in another adult, whether it is somebody that close or whether it's somebody in a teaching or coaching sort of in the sphere of their lives. Just having somebody else to speak to is better than just having nothing, isn't it? Of course.
And I think when you're going through separation and divorce, your self-confidence is often low. You feel that these knocks and the ability for your child to go to someone else can be very vulnerable. And, especially in cultural situations where maybe it's shame or, those things that you don't want, you want to sort of isolate it and not have those things spoken out elsewhere. It's a difficult balance, but, you need, as a parent going through it, you need your own support. And that is the critical bit. That's, Restored Lives, or there's other courses, to help you get through your relationship breakdown so that you can be strong and effective for your child and give them the independence to go and come back to you in a safe and healthy way. And so, I'd encourage people to be able to try that journey and encourage them, bring them onto your direction or find other people that you can gain support from.
I just wanted to ask a couple of sort of detailed questions about some of the typical things. And you've given us some lovely examples in this podcast, but some typical things that children or young people ask about when they're wanting to talk and understand more about divorce and separation from parents. You've got two age groups. You've got your 12 to 17, and then you've got your 18 to 30s. What are some of the typical things that they ask?
The difference between the age groups is more around the volume of information that they will talk about. The 12 to 17s is shorter and sweeter. What are your feelings like? Well, I'm angry. Do you feel anything other than anger? No, just angry. Whereas the sort of 25-year-old will say, I'm angry, depressed, I'm frustrated. They'll do a whole list. So a lot of those responses are just more evolved. The content for the older ones will often be more about their relationships with parents where they don't see much of them. And actually, that's similar to the 12 to 17s. The issues is where they had a lovely connection. I was a daddy's a girl previously, and now I don't see my dad. Those are deep changes that happen that need resolution, and they just pop up in a different way for older 20-year-olds. Like you say, it's more about their own self-belief or ability to connect with other men, let's say. And that is an issue. The other things that often for younger generations, it's about dealing with the parents' hurt. And as they get older, then parents often rely on children more to talk things through for themselves. And that's quite difficult sometimes for children to comprehend. They feel actually personal sadness that they can't fix a parent. And so they start to feel guilty that actually they're not being able to fix the parent or help them. And so there are boundaries that can really help adults and children in those situations, especially for adults to find another group that they can talk to. But there's so many different issues. Children becoming a messenger between parents is difficult. Children hearing their parents speak badly of the ex because they're still their parents. It goes deep to them. And then, there are lots of other things. Eldest child syndrome. We had a group where there were two girls who were talking about, they made sandwiches for their brothers and sisters all their life, one from the age of 6 all the way through till they were 18. And in that sort of story of both of them comparing notes of the sandwiches that they used to make, I realized the responsibility that's put on the eldest child. And often naturally, someone's left at home, well, you've got to have to do the washing or, whatever it might be. Those responsibilities come up. Then there's other things that come up, which is lack of trust. You thought your parent was something. Now they've done something which creates a different history, a different persona. Your super dad was not super dad anymore, or super mum. That superhero status, it goes quite quickly. So for the younger age group, that's quite a thing, and they have to deal with that as a change. There's lots of others. Their own lack of trust is a big thing, but there are ways to relearn trust. Fear of their own relationships going in the direction their parents have gone. Am I going to be like my dad? Am I going to be like my mum? Are questions that sort of just need discussion, and those are really healthy to do. Anyway, there's so many of these things.
Well, that's a really useful insight. Thank you. I was just wondering if there are parents listening and thinking that this might be something that they would like their kids to either consider if they're older, or they'd like to sort of, find out more if they're younger children. What's the best way to bring this kind of thing up? Because I'm just sitting here thinking, I'd love my kids to go on this, but if I just go and blurt out to them, or I met this really interesting chap on the podcast today and he runs this course and it's really good, then that will be the death knell. So how do I do it more effectively?
I direct people to our Instagram site first, actually, Your Direction UK. We have a brilliant lady, Shakira, who really runs that Instagram site. I'm far too old to doing Instagram, so Shakira is much more younger and on the ball, and it's much more accessible. So that's one of the first places I would send people to, just as a link to see what's going on there. There's stories on there, there's experiences, and we're trying to build that more. And also, what we do is a first step to coming onto the workshop is you can talk to Shakira, just direct message her or contact us. We can connect them with her just to talk, and she'll have a telephone call with them and have a conversation, which is often a lovely way just to break the ice and experience it. And then, as ever with children, it's just picking the moment where they are more open to it. There's a moment that's come up to get help or to get support. But I know, with teenagers, it's hard. But the more we talk about this, I'd love, this to be on the agenda for newspapers, everyone. This is such a big issue and no one is talking about it. I don't understand it. But, and so, my brother-in-law has not seen or spoken to his son for, probably 5 years. And I'm desperate that his son could see stuff which might instigate something healthy for him. And that's about conversation. That's about things out there. We're all talking about the issues so that no one says, oh, I'm fine. It's more about, I'm dealing with it in this way. And it's open and honest. This is normal. I've got issues with my parents, so, that everyone has. So we all have to deal with them.
Yeah, me too. But let's not open that can of worms at this point on the podcast. That's a whole nother series. It's been absolutely fantastic talking to you today, Erik. Thank you very much. Where can people find out more about you? and Restored Lives. Just give us the web address one more time. We'll put everything in the show notes as well. So if anyone doesn't get a chance to write it all down, everything you need to be able to find Erik will be in the show notes. But just give us one last shout out to the website and Instagram.
So it's restoredlives.org is the website address, and the Instagram site is Your Direction UK. So yeah, all the information on Your Direction is under that banner, Your Direction, because it's slightly different. But yeah, it's all accessible there. And look forward to anyone. It's a great privilege to help people. And I'm so excited by the changes and helpful changes that people are seeing. So I'm encouraged for adults and for children. It's very exciting.
Me too. I think it sounds a fantastic service, whether you're an adult looking for somewhere to go to discuss your divorce and separation and to work through the emotional side of things, or whether you've got children who would benefit. I can't recommend this enough. It sounds like a wonderful initiative. So thank you very much, Erik, for setting this up. And thank you very much indeed for coming on the podcast today. You can find more of these episodes by following us on LinkedIn or subscribing to thedivorcepodcast.com or on your favourite listening platform. Thank you, Erik, for joining me, and thank you, everybody, for listening.